Hello, you're watching TVP World Talks. I'm Elash Levitsky. France is in for another period of political turbulence, with impending votes of no confidence for the Le Quiniou government and an appeal trial of far-right leader and presidential hopeful Marine Le Pen about to begin. And given the public discontent over the Mercosur deal, as well as heated debates concerning potential French military presence in the Ukraine peacekeeping effort, Paris begins 2026 with one of the most volatile moments in recent history. Joining us here for a glimpse into the latest developments in French politics is Romain Le Quiniou, Managing Director at Eurocreative. Hello and welcome to TVP World.
Hello, good morning.
So let's begin with the Le Quiniou government. Is it actually teetering on the brink, or is it likely to be saved by a rather unusual ally?
Well, that's a recurring question, I would say. This is the situation that we are living for the past almost 2 years, so nothing new there. But I would not be so dramatic about the French government fall, because at the moment there is no sign that the government could fall. Of course, there is a motion of non-confidence that is fueled by extremists from the left and from the right when it comes to the signature of Mercosur and to what they say the non-fighting behavior, attitude of the French government, which has to be balanced. But anyway, this is a motion of confidence which has a very little chance to pass. And in the same time, we know that the discussions are especially focusing on the budget discussions. And here, we still don't know how, but there is some chances that the government will make it for the simple reason that the parties which are not willing to go back to the elections and so to make this government fall are more numerous than the opponents, which means that Macron and his supporters, his allies, can rely both on the center-left and the center-right parties, and they form sufficient numbers to make sure that they find a way to pass a budget, not a perfect budget, but still a budget, and for the government to leave at least until the local elections planned for March. So the situation is not good, as always, in the past few years, but the situation is that the government is there, the government will probably survive, and we will speak about this again in the next few weeks.
So now, even if the government survives, there is still some very intense debate in French politics right now. One of the major themes there is obviously the fate of Marine Le Pen. Now, the far right believes that the whole trial is an effort to cancel Marine Le Pen, to change the result of the upcoming presidential elections. But the accusations there are quite serious, right? So we've got an appeal trial. What do you think the outcome might be? And is this the very last word in this particular case? Or does Marine Le Pen have any other avenue if, for example, the court delivers a verdict that she does not accept?
This is, of course, an important political debate at the moment. But I think that it's not about politics. And here, allow me to take my hat of a political analyst and not justice analyst, not justice expert, because on the conclusion of this appeal, I think that we should leave it to justice experts. What they say is that there are several options right now. The appeal could lead to the same sentences and verdict than the first ruling, which means that Marine Le Pen and a few other dozens of her party members, including former and current MEPs, as well as members of parliament of the French Assembly, culprit of not only embezzlement of EU funds, but a centralized and recurrent system managed and designed to basically reduce political parties, the National Rally party operating costs. So this is very serious accusation, as I said, and this is why the sentence for Marine Le Pen, both a fine as well as a prison sentence, and basically she was barred for running for public office as much as her colleagues for a number of years. So that can be the first option, same verdict. The other option could be a reduced verdict, and here we have to say if it includes also a reduction of the impossibility for Marine Le Pen to run for public office or not. And the third option is also that there is a reverse of this verdict. At the moment, it looks like it's more likely that the verdict will be more or less of the same, because, as you say, the accusations are quite important and justified if we look at the first verdict. Now, what to do for Marine Le Pen? She has to wait for this appeal results, which will come by the summer, the justice authorities say in France. And at the same time, she could also basically appeal on the appeal. And we believe that the results of this appeal of the appeal could be available before the presidential election. But what we know is that if this second ruling, so the appeal of Marine Le Pen, is leading to the same result, she has no way to be a candidate for the presidential election. And this is why we've been hearing for months and months that a replacement option B could be Jordan Bardella. We see him very active these days in the media, in the press, in different conferences, forums. So really he's taking the light, and they are preparing for the succession when it comes to the candidacy of the presidential election in 2027. Problem is that Bardella is creating some divisions, including within the National Rally, but at the same time, people have to acknowledge that he is the most popular candidate at the moment. If we look at the polls, we know that some recent polls were unveiled a few weeks ago, and Bardella would win in the current circumstances in all situations. So we have to see how also this trial will, have political consequences on the number, on the support of the National Rally or not. We don't know yet. The strategy at the moment of Le Pen and the people from the National Rally is clear. We are the victims of a witch hunt. We are political victims of a justice which is biased. This is, to say, at the very least, a very partial analysis of what is being judged in French justice these days, but this is their political tactics.
So there have been reports that the Trump administration doesn't look kindly upon this trial, and indeed that there might be some ideas of imposing sanctions on the judges involved in the trial of Marine Le Pen. Now, isn't that slightly ironic, given that the Rassemblement National as a party began its life as an anti-American initiative back in the day? After the fall of the Soviet Union, it essentially voiced an anger not just against the European Union, but also against what was perceived as American dominance in France. So they said, we don't want that, we want to have our own way. And now the Trump administration supporting this party. Isn't that slightly unusual, would you say?
Well, being anti-American is kind of a tradition into French politics, but it's true that the National Rally was particularly vehement on this topic. What we know from these allegations is that Trump, during the judgment, or just after the first ruling of the judgment of Marine Le Pen, indeed publicly commented that he was surprised, he was not happy, he was not satisfied with this ruling, that it's contrary to justice and all these things. So nothing new from Trump. This is something that, as a French citizen, I look with a worry, because this is about French internal politics and not the business of anyone else. But anyway, the allegations that were reported into this German journal that the U.S. administration could sanction some judges which are responsible for this current ruling are not verified, and the French public authorities didn't say that it was verified. So we have to take it cautiously. We will see how the administration from the US is commenting or not. Probably they will, because this is about global politics, and we know that they support far-right political parties, including the National Rally. Now, indeed, it's a situation which is not so easy for the National Rally, because on one side there is the temptation to acknowledge that a powerful ruler such as Trump, which has some ideological proximity, is supporting them. But at the same time, this is a very tricky situation for the electorate and their political positioning in France. First, they declare themselves as sovereignists, so you cannot really accept that a political party from abroad is interfering, because this is what we are talking about, even if it's only public declarations. And at the same time, indeed, the electorate of the National Ally is not really reputed to be American lovers. So here it's a situation which is difficult. What we know is that the US administration, as much as they have been and they will continue to be involved to some extent in the electoral campaign, at least by making some declarations supporting, officially or not, radical parties or at least sovereign parties in the different elections. We know that they will do that in France. We have to see what will be the extent of this, if it will be just public declaration or if it will be more endorsement, such as basically supporting political campaign, potentially funding. But this is up to the French authorities to, analyze, monitor the situation and act accordingly if there are some issues. For the moment, the National Ally, and especially Jordan Bardella, is trying to manage between these difficult times of being kind of supported by Trump, but not acknowledging this situation. And we know here that one of the factors will be also for Jordan Bardella to be sure to be supported internally by the National Ally, but also to see who among the international supporters, including the Trump administration, if they will support this potential succession from Marine Le Pen or not. This is also an interesting question to follow up in the next few weeks, because we know the tense relation, for example, between Jordan Bardella and Steve Bannon, which is still influential in the far-right international politics.
Indeed, that's a very interesting issue. Is the Trump administration looking at all these far-right parties and thinking of something of a hostile takeover, possibly providing them finance, saying, now you're working for me, forget your previous allegiances and all that. But we have to actually move on and ask another question. How deep is the discontent concerning the Mercosur deal within the French society in general?
Well, we know that a large part of the population is against. Why? Also because a large part, the vast majority of the political elites are against. Some of them are against because this is their political parties. Some are against because also the political scene in France has been shaped on the conditions that you cannot be in favor on anything that could affect agriculture. So this is a lot about positioning also. I believe that the Macron's position in Brussels is not really the same as the domestic position. And at the moment, we know that the government has been pressuring the president, for example, of being against officially because abstaining was not enough for the French public electorate, for the French public opinion and electorate, and that they are very scared about, massive protests from the farmers. The thing is, of course, the Mercosur can affect to some extent some sectors of the agriculture, but at the same time, we know that Mercosur, and this is a very, objective opinion here, Mercosur can be beneficial to vast sectors of the European economy, including the French economy. So this is a very difficult debate, of course, but the problem in France is that everything that is referring to the agriculture is abrasive. And at the moment, you cannot have a position which is against farmers. We know very much the difficulty of the farmers in France and in Europe. We know the financial difficulty. We know that the perspectives are not great in anything, demographic, the future European security, economic security, or climate change. So there are a number of problems, but you cannot always say that you will oppose anything that is affecting agriculture. We are a country where identity is based, part of the identity is based on farming, on countryside. This is true, but at the same time, our economy is not based on, 25% of GDP coming from the agriculture. So we need to find a balance. Yes, we need to protect our farmers, but it cannot come at the cost of our economy or at the cost of European competitiveness. So this is necessary for French political elites to be responsible. Yes, they can lose some leverage, they can lose some popularity by acknowledging that some things need to be signed at the global level, but at the same time, they have to take decisions even if it's not popular.
Romain Le Quiniou was our guest today here on TVP World. Thank you very much for joining us and for sharing your insight.
Thank you.
And I'm Romain Le Quiniou. You're watching TVP World. Please do stay with us.